Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast with your host, Tracy Hayes. One of the cornerstones that is preached by the most successful is to surround yourself by 5 successful people you want to be like. Surround yourself with the best of the best. My guest today is certainly one that I am honored to have in the studio today. Hopefully add her to my circle of influence. She was recently highlighted in the Business Insight magazine with the subtitle, Empower the Women, Develop the Nation, and we're going to talk about that. She has written a children's book and soon to be releasing her own book, talking about her, and we'll hear the details of her 28 years career in the real estate industry. Her LinkedIn simply says entrepreneur 1991 to the present, and she is not only an agent, she is also a developer, mentor, and coach. Please welcome to the show the owner-broker of Ponte Vedra Realty, Kim Davis.
Thank you.
Kim, welcome to the show. I'm glad to make it on. And, you know, it's amazing what Facebook does. And I was scrolling through because obviously I didn't know you personally at all. And hopefully we'll get to know each other a little bit here on the show. But you had posted the magazine cover.
Right.
And I saw it. And then obviously that triggered me to dig a little deeper. And I'm like, this is someone of great knowledge and influence in Northeast Florida. You know what's going on. You've been here a while, and obviously have a team at Ponte Vedra Beach, and successful out there. That we want to pick your brain here, so to speak, and hear about your story here today on the show. So we're looking forward to it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start this off, and this is because when the magazine's the subtitle "Empower the Women, Develop the Nation." I don't know how. I mean, some women that I've dated in my career, and my wife does some things. I'm like, yeah, honey, I didn't have anything less expectation because she's successful in her own right. But really, women, I always believe women do run the show. I truly believe it. Men like to put their ego out there, but really, I think there's a woman behind almost every successful male, but I'm sure we could find some exceptions, but there's always a great woman behind a great man. Would you agree?
You know, I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe, and we'll get back to that, but I believe that women have great talent and skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Men have great talent and skill set, and I think if we can combine that, it's a great win-win. But for women, running a business, owning a business, you know, being an entrepreneur, and there's differences in that, we have the ability to make great decisions under stress, under pressure. We have a lot of patience, most of us do, and I think that is very important. And we tend to have a lot of empathy. So those skills and those talents and those traits are very important in dealing with the public.
No doubt. I totally agree. I mean, of course, we're talking about real estate,
right?
Which in the beginning was dominated by men. I think most people would agree it's dominated by women now.
I agree.
And the most successful ones, whether they're, you know, I think the old adage, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just perception. You know, the males were there because at one time they wouldn't allow women to buy houses. Anyway, sorry. But you know, it was for a while there a woman got into real estate because their other provider was providing. It's like almost I don't want to say hobby or whatever. They were making some side money, and then all of a sudden it grew. And I think some of your more successful real estate agents that have been around for several decades can go back and look at that, where they started, and just over time became that expert in that area, and referrals after referrals, which I'm sure you've experienced.
Sure. To
some of the guests that we've had on the show are really. Some of them, had one on here recently. She's extremely successful. That was Stevie Hahn. You mentioned that you and Stevie.
Yes.
She's only it hasn't even been 6 years. Yeah. And her success, and that the power is there in the skills, and like you said, all those attributes that a woman brings to the table.
Well, you know, as a broker owner over the years, I've done a lot of hiring, and one of the skills that I look for in any agent is empathy.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably the top skill that they need in order in residential sales anyway,
right.
Because it's such an emotional decision, and you just have to be able to put yourself in the buyer's shoes and or the seller's shoes and relate to that. And I think nurses, teachers make great real estate agents. That's just a trait that they typically have.
Yeah.
So
Can you train someone to do that? Empathy?
you can help them understand it, but I think it's inside.
It's more innate.
It's
Yeah.
innate.
I need to get better at
Absolutely.
empathy myself. That's probably my weakness in sales. Knowledge has allowed me to get to a certain
Sure,
point, but
sure.
empathy, I think, is held me short of where I ultimately want to be.
Well, during the COVID crisis that we had, I think empathy was the one thing that we had to speak to with our clients to keep them comfortable, to
Mhm.
keep them not panicking. We had to say, how are you? Are you doing okay through all this? What can
Right.
I do for you? Not about, well, when am I going to sell you the next house? That's not what they wanted to hear.
Right.
So there's times and places for it, more importantly. So I think that's definitely a huge skill.
So we're going to get back onto my normal routine here. You grew up in South Carolina.
I did, yes.
You are a Gamecock. I graduated from the Citadel myself. Tell us about growing up in Greenville.
What a great area.
Mhm.
And I go back often. Matter of fact, I was there for Thanksgiving. My mom still lives there. My brothers and sisters are all around that area. It's just a great up and coming area. And
Mhm.
Southern Living hosts it in their magazine all the time.
Right.
And it really is a frequent place, but it's a great place to retire. It has a great downtown walkability, facilities on the river. So it's just a great place. Just good people.
All right, so Greenville's a little bit closer to the Clemson University.
It is,
I have
yes.
someone close to me who's a big Clemson. She's wearing orange today, actually. Did you actually? What were your college choices? What made you go to the University of South Carolina?
Interesting question. I did consider Clemson. I looked at Carolina, which I ultimately went to, and one out-of-state school. I had a scholarship.
Well,
So I went to South Carolina.
scholarships are influence.
Yeah, very important. And my undergrad is in education. It's in teaching, actually.
Yeah.
So then, fast forward, now MBA in business, of course.
Mhm.
So it's just all full circle, and I've used the MBA learning and journey
Right.
in my business. So it's phenomenal.
So, was your, at 18, 19, 20 years old, your vision was to go and teach initially?
I did initially. I did a
Mhm.
short time and then moved to California. Lived out there for a short time, then came back to the East Coast
Mhm.
and stayed in South Carolina for about 7 or 8 years after that, and then I moved to Florida.
Okay.
So
Well, that was one of my questions because I saw that on your, reading your bios. What brought you out to California?
a former husband's job took
Okay.
us out there. Yeah,
Okay.
and loved it. He
Now,
didn't
if I
necessarily.
read correctly, and I don't, and I don't know how old it was because obviously I'm reading your LinkedIn or whatever, wherever I saw this because I obviously research everyone that you're pursuing your broker's license in California. Is that
No,
correct? No, you
no.
gave that up. Okay. There was
I
something on there. I don't know if I read
I
that
wasn't
incorrect.
an agent at that point.
Okay.
And when I moved back to the Carolinas, I taught for a short time
Mm-hmm.
and then moved here. And when I moved here, I didn't work for about a year and a half, but I was trying to figure out, what I was doing and
Okay.
what I wanted to do. So I was hired by a Fortune 500 medical company, and I was a medical rep.
Right.
So I did that, had North Florida, which was a great profession, a lot of traveling. While I was doing that, I got my real estate license,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew a broker, and we sparked up a conversation, and I ended up working for him.
So ultimately, what took you from you were back in South Carolina? What brought you to Jacksonville?
A husband.
Okay. Still following him around.
Yes.
Okay.
It's funny what men will do.
You mentioned an area that you had great success with the was it pharmaceuticals or just medical sales
Yes.
in general? Okay.
Yes.
So you're doing well that. What made you just want to dabble in the real estate while you were?
I had so many people asking me, gosh, have you ever thought about getting into real estate? I'm like, no, I really haven't, and they're like, gosh, you would do so well, and the sky's the limit.
Mm-hmm.
There's no caps, or weren't at the time, and I just decided to get my license, and then I knew this broker, so I started talking to him, and he hired me, and we became partners, and we were partners for 2 years, and as I was training to be a broker because he
Right.
wanted me to be a broker.
Right.
So we became partners, and then subsequently I bought him out, and he stayed on with me and worked as an agent broker.
Mhm.
So that's how I've become a broker in real estate.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back into your the career. You came to Jacksonville in '89. Because we just covered like 4 questions right there. Kim, you've done a lot of different things, and you've written a children's book. You're writing your own book. We'll get the details on that in a few minutes here. You've developed. We talked a little bit about you being a developer. Obviously, a real estate officer running a team of real estate officers. So you got to stay sharp. Now, yeah, you got an MBA, but you and I know that you're just going to a classroom or passing a course doesn't sharpen your sword, so to speak, to stay in front, especially to lead people, I think.
Right.
What is your, do you like reading books, the podcasts? What is your favorite way to stay on top of things?
I just think learning in general in life is the way you've got to reinvent yourself sometimes to adapt to the market conditions. I think being interested in other people and wanting them to be successful. Because to me, the agents that I've hired, I want them to ultimately be great success stories.
Right.
And I mean,
Well, let me dig deeper on that to slightly go off track, but that's a great, interesting thing. Because have you ever? I'm sure you have, but I mean, explain the difference when today versus say 10 years ago, or even longer. You've been in the business 28 years. Some of those people that you've wanted it more than they do.
yeah.
I mean,
And I have,
Yeah.
truly,
Yeah.
because I am, and I'm not saying this for any other reason, but when you're at the top of your game, you see people that have the traits that you want to mentor, you want to coach, you want to bring in, but they have to want it just as much as you want it for them. And I've had that great experience over the years. I've trained certain agents. They're doing phenomenally well. They may not still be with me,
Right.
but that's okay. I
Right.
want them to spread their wings. It's like being a mom and having
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
agents, children.
Well, I mean, the key thing underneath is, as John Maxwell says, I mean, to be a leader, you got to create other leaders.
Absolutely.
In your case, a great real estate
Absolutely.
agent creating other great real estate agents.
And I love that because I want them to go out. And, real estate is so diverse. I'm not just your typical agent. And I have a lot of diversity in my background and in my profession. Whereas some agents want to be strictly agents. That's okay. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And
I just want to be a loan officer. I could care less about being a manager.
Exactly. And everybody has their skill and their desire and their goals. And I'm there to help them achieve that if I can.
So, whatever amount of years ago, you've had these people who you wanted it more than you figured it. So when you look at someone today, how do you evaluate them a little different? Kind of test if do they really want it? Is it worth your time? Because
Yes.
you're very diverse, and the things you're doing, you don't have a lot of time.
Right.
So it has to be used wisely.
Great point. And I have reached that point in my life because my former broker partner said to me, he said, Kim, one day you'll get to the age, your time in your career, and you will say, I'm not hiring all of these people. I want this one, and this one.
Right.
And that's where I am.
Yeah.
I look for quality. I look for that desire.
Yeah.
Their willingness.
For lack of lot of other words, but they gotta want it. They gotta want it for themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, I am at that point, and I may get 10 people to call me and say, hey, I really want to work under you. I want to learn how you do it. And then my question is, why do you want it?
You're in Ponte Vedra, and for those listeners don't know, in Northeast Florida, Ponte Vedra's known for the higher priced homes, the beach homes and so forth.
Right.
That you probably have a lot of agents, especially coming from outside the area, not only inside the area, but that are probably trying to get in your office because Ponte Vedra Beach Realty is
The namesake.
the name.
Yeah, it is. And I do get a lot of calls. And so I am very selective. And I use my experience trying to get those quality agents.
Mhm.
So, real estate's an interesting dynamic.
Well, finding if someone has the want to is also interesting. That's why the question that I had really has no defined answer, as you know.
Yeah.
It's just, what are you going through your head and your evaluation, the test, and everyone is different. Everyone has a different litmus test on how they're going to come in and present themselves to you, and whether or not you're going to spend time hopefully developing them.
Well, and I have an assessment also that I can share with them and have them take questions, and they'll answer a question, and it may or not be the right answer. It may be on the fringe. There's a number of things that I do to evaluate.
Yeah.
But you're right, time is important, and
Right.
time value of money is
Right.
just.
And I think when you become successful, you sit back at some time and say, you know what, I've been doing this a while. I've got the house that I want. I'm living where I'm making the money. I need to go spend some time on my own time.
Yeah.
Whether it's traveling or whatever your hobby, or in this case, writing your book. So let's
Yeah.
dig into that.
Yeah.
Like that transition, I'm getting good.
Good segue.
Let's talk about the kids' book first. If you
Sure.
have a copy right there, if we
I
show
do.
it up to everyone. I wrote the name down. The Beach Adventures of Sassy, Sophie, and Samantha.
Yes.
And you said this was for more of your toddler age group,
It is.
pre-kindergarten.
Really about 2 to 7-ish.
Mhm.
And the reason that this book came to be, sometimes in life we have great animals that are
Mhm.
part of our life.
Yep.
And this golden retriever was my favorite of all that I've
Mhm.
ever had.
Mhm.
She passed away 3 years ago, and I truly missed her. And from that, this book just developed.
Yes.
And as a former teacher, I had always wanted to write a children's book and never realized I would do it.
Mhm.
And certainly didn't know the theme or the topic. And this just presented itself. And one night I sat down and just wrote the entire book
Right.
and hired an illustrator, and we put the pictures to the words and the book.
Bam.
Yeah.
Right. The other great thing today too with the technology and everything, and I met someone at a recent conference that I was at. There's people out there to help you
Yeah.
write the books, especially
Yeah.
you don't, if you have an idea, there's people out there that want to hear your idea and help you develop it. They got people, maybe you're not the greatest writer.
Right.
I'm not an English major. I was an education major though, like yourself. But that will write that book for you with your thoughts, your stories
Right.
that you put in there. That's awesome. I've cried harder for 2 dogs in my life than any human. I can tell you that. There's no doubt about it. They tear your heart out.
Absolutely.
As short as their life is, I know some people are like, oh, my wife was off. We just got a new dog about a year ago, but we went about 2.5, 3 years, whatever it was, between dogs, and I'm like, well, that's actually it's part of life.
It is.
They're going to tear your heart out. There's no doubt about it. But the years that you have, their unrelentless love and affection.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And that was why it was so easy for me just to sit down, and I had so many great memories with her.
Mhm.
And this book has been just so well received, and I've had numbers of friends and people, and it's available for purchase. And
So can they get it on Amazon, or where
I'm working on the Amazon link now.
Okay.
But they can get it, and I have a private website for that, which I'll be glad to share.
Yes, we'll put it in the show notes
Yes.
for that. Or anyone want to make comments? If you want to make a comment, if you're watching Facebook Live and want to know where they can get the book, just say, hey, where do I get the book? And then we'll reply back with that after the show. Where the website.
That'd
So,
be awesome.
yeah.
It's a cute book, and I do like it, and it's not sad by any means.
Mhm.
It's just it tells life stories, as you said.
Yeah.
And for little ones, they need to know that, because if they get attached,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
no different.
Yeah. So you got the children's book. You're in the middle right now. I think it was a springtime. You're expecting the book about your career. Is that what we could describe this other book?
Well, this article that we talked about in the
Right.
magazine, Business Insight, sort of inspired, and I had wanted to write a book about my career, my life, all of it included, and this is sort of the preface.
Can you show that up here?
Sure. This is the Business Insight cover for the magazine, just came out, and it is on Amazon, and also you can get it at Barnes & Noble, and it's exclusive at JFK and LAX airports. Yeah. So with this interview that he did, I used bits and pieces, snippets of what I'm going to be putting in my book. So maybe a year and a half, 2 years before it's finished.
So I imagine when you're writing a book, just like you're writing the children's book, you have an audience in mind for the book. What audience are you? Not necessarily that this audience should be the only one that buys the book. Everyone should buy the book. But what audience are you kind of directing? Are you speaking to?
Well, I think we all have a story. And I think if you reach a certain place in your life, you want to share that story. And people want to know, like the questions you're asking me, where did you come from? Where, did you get your education? What has inspired you? Tell me your story. That is important for people to know. So that part of it, but also the real estate part of it for agents, for people that are considering getting into real estate. I mean, just lots of information that can be good for them.
What a career of 28 years in real estate is like.
Yes, being a boss, a woman boss, how has that affected decisions or other people, and has that been a task, or has it been a great opportunity? It's been a huge opportunity for me. I've never truly felt that there was an obstacle that I couldn't overcome, because I see it as a challenge or an opportunity. So I think it's how you look at things as well.
There's the term I like to use is the abundance mindset. That I got thrown a curveball, but what's that telling me? As John Maxwell says, he has a path for everyone. I personally believe that. But in your life, you're thrown a curveball, and you're like, "Why me? Why me?" But for every curveball that you get, there's another door that opens.
Absolutely.
The next pitch is a meatball coming down, right at the right speed and the right height, and you can knock it out of the park.
Right.
I was just listening. Something actually was just this morning. It was one of the coaches was talking about their team, and I swear it was probably on ESPN this morning, and the coach was making I know. I'm sorry. I know exactly where. I'm a Giants fan, so the New York Giants stuff comes up, and they were talking about old games, and it was Tom Coughlin.
Oh.
Tom Coughlin was talking about his team, and that when the most recent Super Bowl, they were only 9-7 for the season. Everyone was laughing at them making the playoffs because their record was they didn't even win 10 games, and they made the playoffs because of the way everything was going. And Tom Coughlin says, we don't get down because the last play was bad. We're looking at the next play.
Absolutely.
And it's just like golf. You hit that into the woods, what's your next shot?
Exactly.
And that, I think, is the attitude that you're referring to.
Exactly. That's the attitude. You can either be a victim of your circumstance or your obstacle, or you can take it and tweak it and make something positive out of it. And that's just my mindset, and that's what I've always done.
I think people get caught up in, I want to get upset, but no, you can get upset because it didn't go your way. But then after you're through that, step back and say, when the sun comes up tomorrow, what am I going to do?
Well, you just need to say, these are my options, and this is how I'm going to tackle this issue or challenge, and proceed in that way.
And it's so amazing when you push through those things.
Yeah.
How many, it's like the grass is greener on the other side of that fence.
Well, you grow with each of those opportunities to the next level, and something else opens up, like you said, other opportunities or other people that you didn't meet. I mean, and they're going to bring their experiences into your life. So life is about growing and developing. Right. I think.
So you have a timeline for the book? When should we?
Probably a year and a half to 2, maybe.
So probably 2023-ish time frame. Do we have a title yet? No, still working on that one. Kim Davis is the title right now. You Google her, it will come up. Okay, well we're gonna have you definitely on the show when that book comes out.
Thank you.
I'm making my reservation now. All right, we're putting it on the schedule. When the book comes out, we'll be the first to plug it on the book tour.
Well,
So,
thank you for
as you
that.
can see, I'm Ryan Sirhan. Do you read Ryan? Have you read his stuff?
I have, and we've talked about this 10X rule, which
All right.
I've done as well.
Yes.
Yes.
You've now so yeah. Let's spin off on that because you've dug a little deeper into
Yeah.
Grant's stuff,
Uh-huh.
and you asked me, and actually I didn't finish answering the question about the 10X. And when people look at, they immediately go, "Oh, I can't be like Grant Cardone," but that's not the message. Grant is a unique player. There's no doubt about it.
He is.
But if you could have a slice of his pie, you're doing very well.
Absolutely.
And I think that the 10X is obviously a great tagline, great
Yes.
10X, and just 10X what you're doing. You might be doing something so. To me, it's what I read out of it is you might be doing something so small, but if I 10X it, what level will that bring me up to?
Absolutely. That's what it is.
You've been deeper involved in this program.
Yeah, the Accelerator Program, which I think is amazing. And as we talked before the show, it really sort of transitions your mindset a little bit. He really loves passive income, and that's important for people. Most people think about just their salary that they make weekly or monthly, and that's what they're focusing on. And your passive income is really what you should be focusing on and more interested in, because, assuming you live a healthy life, you could live 20, 30, 40 more years. You may outlive your money,
Right.
so that's sort
Which
of.
is very common,
It's
unfortunately.
very common.
Mhm.
It is.
Yeah.
And I remember saying as a little girl, and it was sort of ahead of its time, gosh, what do people do if they outlive their money, And my mom reminded me of that not long ago. She said, "Do you remember saying that?" I said, "I sure do," and it's so relevant now. And people have to plan for that. So.
Because we're old enough to remember that people actually used to have pensions,
Yes.
which aren't there.
Right.
And pensions is a great passive income after you retire, for certainly to know that you're going to get X amount out of money, but that's gone. Your 401k, unfortunately, people don't put enough in there early, but doesn't mean you shouldn't be putting that in there. But those are just kind of the simple things. It's whether it's obviously Grant's big into the real estate, and having those people are going to need a place to live.
Right.
Our country is millions of homes short of what they feel we need for our society.
Correct.
So not everyone's going to own a home. People are going to rent. So obviously that's the business we're in. There's other passive incomes, but I imagine you've expanded your real estate portfolio over the years.
Rentals are really important, whether you own a multifamily office building, multifamily residential building.
Right.
You can even own office buildings, but those are a little challenging right now.
Yeah.
So really the rental side of it is more of the passive income. And you can own as many as you want. It's just, financing them correctly, finding the great deals and that kind of thing. So
And it's great for that someone who's making a great W-2 salary or whatever. Maybe you don't take the kids to Disney World as much as you think you should, and to leverage that to get your first one, and so forth. Because there's such, especially here in our area, I think we're blessed right now. I think 28 years you've been in this area. There's been more upside than there's been down.
Oh yeah.
For sure, we're in a unique. That's still growing.
Absolutely.
And we go. I personally believe the other side of the river, the Palatka Green Cove, is still another decade or more of growth going in that direction.
Good
Now
point.
you want to buy great investment property. Someone was asking me about that the other day. I said, Bradford County, if you take Route 16 and head directly west. Nice little high school. I officiate football. I was out there recently. Great, nice turf field, beautiful little stadium they built. It's a sleeper county.
Right.
When that expressway gets done, that's not going to be so far away. People are going to rent out there because they can still rent for probably under $1,000, but you could probably still buy a lot of homes for under $100,000.
It's going to be an extension of Jacksonville, much like Greenville, South Carolina,
Yep.
has developed over the years. Those little small communities on the outlying area are now part of that, and they're growing that direction.
And that manufacturing business, like
Yes.
Greenville's gotten so good with, is it BMW?
BMW, yes.
Yeah, moved in. They're going to move into places like that because they can buy a bunch of land cheap,
Absolutely.
and the labor is not very expensive because the cost of living is so.
Correct, and they're building schools like crazy up there
Yep.
to accommodate all that growth, and the businesses are following. And you know, there's a saying in real estate: build the rooftops, and the businesses will come.
Would you agree with this? I think too many people see real estate on the short term, therefore never make a move. They always like, well, what am I buying the house for? If in 2 years, can I sell it and make $50,000? Sometimes that happens,
Right.
but most of the time it doesn't. You need to be in it more. It's a long-term play for its
Yeah.
greatest benefits.
I think any of your investments, and I'm speaking from a business perspective
Mhm.
now, I think any of your investments really should be long-term, because that is where I think you ultimately make the most money.
Right.
And sometimes you have to sell it for whatever reason.
Well,
But
different pops in the
long-term,
market like we
Yeah,
had recently might have been an opportunity to sell.
Or-
Maybe go buy 2 houses with
Right,
what you made.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways to make equity, and that is the key. And you know, having a great passive income in different businesses. You know, the marketing side of so many things is exploding on the internet. So you can do a lot of things even online.
I want to revert back to a quote that you had, and actually it was something we just actually talked about, but I actually wrote this down. You had actually quoted, I don't know if you stole this or this is just plainly yours, because I can't remember again of all the stuff I read about you. I was writing stuff down. Right? Your challenging moments in life do not define you, deter you, or defeat you. They only strengthen you.
Correct.
Mhm.
Those are my words.
And I think in all these books that I have up here, they're saying the same thing that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And here's Kim. I can actually touch her right here. She's that close. It's not Ryan Serhant, which I only see on television, telling us that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so true. You
Yeah.
know, I think people, and I'm no exception. I mean, I'm not this person that is beyond this, but I think if you have challenges, which we all will if we live long enough in life, things happen, but they don't have to define you as a
No.
person. As we've said, you can overcome those challenges, you can figure out how to work around those challenges.
It's a great thing about really our country.
Yeah.
And you could be kicked down in the dirt and have nothing. If you're still
Absolutely.
breathing, you still have a heartbeat. There's nothing that can't stop you from turning it and become a Grant Cardone.
I agree. I think you have to have hope, number one.
Mhm.
You have to have that hope that it can be something great. And people have dreams all the time. They just don't know how to make them happen.
Right.
And, you know, that's so inspiring to talk to people. And I had a girl that worked with me one time, and she really wasn't cut out to be a real estate agent. So I sat down with her one day and I said, you know, don't think about the answer, but I said, if you could do whatever you wanted to do right now today, what would it be? She answered the question. I said, then do it. This is what you love. This is your passion. Then let's go do it. And
That
she
is so
did.
interesting. I was just listening to a podcast by Carl White, the Mortgage Market Animals Freedom Club, and he said he had someone working in their office, and he was a great person, but obviously was not clicking, was just not fulfilling what that role needed to be, and was just getting by every day.
Right.
And he went to him and asked him, what would you like to be? And they wanted to be an auto mechanic. He said, great. Me and my wife, we're going to give you $10,000. Go to the auto mechanic school or whatever that you wanted to go. And it said it was cheaper for them to give them the $10,000 than the loss of business by having that employee not excelling at what they're doing.
That's exactly what happened in this situation. So I helped her. I called a few people. I lined her up with the job that she was looking to do.
Mhm.
Worked out, and she's still doing it.
Super.
And it's
That's-
just a great success story. So
Yeah.
if I can add those little inspiration nuggets along the way.
You change someone's trajectory.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. And every day they go home, they're happier because now they're doing what they
Right.
wanted to do, and obviously they're still there. They must assume they're happy.
And I'm not getting complaints about that person.
Right.
That's great.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The loss of productivity. So let's dig in because we've got our real estate agents, and I know we got loan officers watching here. you have this on here. This is another quote I again stole from all your stuff. Real estate is a contact sport, and networking is where it all begins. You must know to get to know and be in contact with lots of people.
Exactly. That's it in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Networking is the core of real estate. Not all business, but real estate particularly. If I'm standing in the line at the supermarket, I have cards, and I may give out 10 cards while I'm in there. Or I look at the opportunities that approach me and or that are presented to me, and I evaluate them. So yeah, networking is huge. I mean,
I want to tap on that. Hold on a second.
sure.
You're in the grocery store and you hand out 10 business cards. Now, here's reality, folks. You and I know that this area is growing.
Yeah.
And there are real estate offices that actually open retail locations because they're hoping for someone to walk in. Now, hopefully that's not their only source of business, but
Yeah.
that's a helps offset the lease because someone actually walked in your door versus you searching leads other ways. And this area is growing. And as we both live in St. Johns County, it's a hot seller. If the house goes up, we're getting multiple offers. So there's other people in that grocery store who are looking to buy, sell, invest.
Absolutely.
All the time.
Yeah.
And for you to approach them and say, oh, that was, I don't know a real estate agent. You know what's funny? People will take that card and act like they know you personally and refer. Go, well, I met this nice lady Kim in the grocery store. She must live around the grocery store where I live. She must be near me. We're close. We're neighbors.
Right.
You need to use her.
Yes.
That's their mindset. It's such a beautiful thing.
Well,
the cost of 10
it's
business
so
cards.
non-threatening. If you're in an environment where they are, or if you're at the veterinarian's office or insurance or whatever, I just use those opportunities wisely. I don't send them out to everyone, obviously, but if I'm approached or if I meet someone and I have a conversation, I'm like, hey, here's my card. Call me if I can help. Very non-threatening.
I think the reality is that we know a number of people that are in our circle are going to buy, refinance. They're doing something with real estate.
All the time.
Whether it's financial or buying or selling or whatever, they're coming across those things. And if you think about, well, I want to make this much this year, I want to make this much in the next 5 years, or in my 28-year career, how many transactions do I need to do? Now, obviously, it's gotten a lot better for you. 20 years ago, what they were selling for in Ponte Vedra versus today, right?
Correct. Yes.
But the amount of people you make connections, the amount, I call it rock. You got to turn over as many rocks as possible because you're going to find the nuggets under the rocks.
Right.
And it's not hey, I just gave out 10 business cards in the grocery store. Wait for the phone to ring. No, you just keep pressing on. It might be who knows how long that one of those cards falls into someone's hand.
Well, there is a statistic, and usually 8 to 10 touches before they will do something. And if you have to stay in touch with them constantly, then you have to do that. You have to develop that relationship first.
So let's say you're in the grocery store and there's another business person, and whatever they do, they've got their own company or they got their business card. I don't know, they may be an executive at Merrill Lynch or something, and they hand you your card. Are you taking that and putting it in your database to make sure you start those touches that we talked about?
Yes, and I may have a referral for them, or I may use them, or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I love gathering people's information and learning their stories. Stories are so cool about everyone. We're all so different, and it, again, doesn't define us, but it certainly makes us who we are and has a part of making us who we are. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because I say the same thing you just said. Everyone has a story. I've had some agents that have had a couple of years experience who, I just have seen they have a great social media presence or trying to get their business going.
Right.
And I've had them on the show. And then I've got someone with your vast experience and time in the business on here, and everybody's story is unique. You've got some more chapters to your story because you've been doing it longer.
Exactly.
They've got some chapters in there that a lot of people can relate to because they've only been doing this 24 months and they're killing it.
Exactly.
They're doing well,
and
whatever they're doing.
I'm so excited about that. And now social media has definitely enhanced that Because when I got into business, we had MLS books that used to be delivered to our offices, and we had to flip through and find a property. No computers.
Hopefully it was still available.
Oh my gosh, no computers, and we laughed. They had just started the computer system at our MLS. I remember going up there and waiting in line to get to the computer. It was so amazing. But so yeah, it's pretty interesting stories.
Yeah, if you had the computers back then, you wouldn't have to put 28 years to reach your level now, right?
Exactly.
Well, as your good friend Stevie Hahn mentioned,
Yes.
and I've expressed this with a lot of people. Stevie's grabbed social media by the horns, and she consistency, and she, as she even says in a couple interviews, and she said in the interview that I had her, she had people thinking she was killing it before she even sold her first home.
Right.
By just exposing herself on the social media on a consistent basis.
If I have a question about that, I call her.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I think we should build that camaraderie and, collaboration. We're in a competitive industry, but hey, we can be friends, we can help each other because we all have different aspects.
Everybody's
of the
circle's
business.
different.
Exactly.
That you're talking about that, and a
Exactly.
number of successful agents have said the same thing on the show. Don't see another realtor as a competitor. They have a different circle.
Right.
There's people that like them because they're male, whatever, blonde, or they just like their personality, whatever it is.
Yes.
They may go to, but you have different circles, and as long in this, of course, there's only a small percentage of agents that are truly successful, and that you breed I'm going to use a word. I'm going to use a George Bush word, expertiseism. Experience level, a quality of agent that you're getting when you feed off each other and have that little competitive. I think Corey Hastings with Engel and Volkers, he has recruited a lot of top agents, and one thing he said last week when we had him on the show was I said, how are you bringing them all in the office, all these egos?
Yeah.
And it's actually a synergy that's been created because they're politely competitive with each other,
Right.
and it drives the business.
Well, I think, and I hate to keep going back to COVID, but I think COVID has some positive outcomes for all of us. And I think that it has created an environment of simplicity, respect, no drama. People don't want drama anymore. It's just it's too much work. It really is unnecessary.
Right.
So people are focused more on, I think, the personal side and the behavioral side of things and trying to help others. But we're still competitive.
There's one word I'm surprised you haven't used, but you've been describing it throughout the entire interview, and that is relationships.
Absolutely.
Because at the bottom line, if I was to write a book about your podcast 41, if I was to write a book about the first 41 podcasts, relationships would be probably the biggest chapter of what everyone has all fed in and said. It's all about the relationships.
Well, it's going back to the networking, the contact sport. You've got to first start that networking. When you meet those people, you're building those relationships, and that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make those 10 or 12 calls or stay in touch with them, building that relationship.
You've been in the business a while.
Yes.
For most people's careers.
Tactfully,
Hopefully you're in it
thank
for a
you.
while longer until you decide. I don't know, I don't know if you would ever give it up. I mean, you could always do real estate, even if you sold all the rest, everything else you had and just tinkled with it for a little bit. But how do you maintain, because you've met so many people over the years.
Incredible.
How do you can't go out to dinner with everyone you've met. You know what I mean? You just, what do you do to let them know that they're on your mind, upon occasion? What do you do?
That is a challenge for someone like me that values relationships so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the people that I do business with, and they do become friends. So I try to circle back with them and stay in touch with them. I have gifts that I take to them during the holidays, maybe a bottle of wine, maybe a poinsettia, maybe a gift card, whatever. And I do stay in touch with them, either text, email, pick up a phone, call, just whatever it takes to know, hey, I'm thinking about you. I haven't forgotten about you. How are you doing? Are you going to be around? I'm going to leave you a little gift at your door. I'm just going to do a quick drop by, whatever. So that's important. You're thinking about them. And I do. I can't go out with everyone. I wish I could.
I had an interesting conversation recently, and one thing I do is I do birthday cards.
Yeah.
And a program that I've got, I type in there, I mean, it sends out, but it sends it out a box with a couple brownies in it. So I see it's their birthday, I go in, I can create the card.
Love that.
I type in a message, just a simple happy birthday, hope your day is great. And then it goes out with a couple brownies. And what it costs me over the course of a year to send everyone, and of course that's growing every month.
Absolutely.
I'm adding more people's birthdays to it, and I'm actually amazed. Like I was going through and sending out cards. I try about 10 days in advance to send it out because it takes a couple days before it get there. Anyway, but how many people in our industry, whether it's a loan officer or you, are not doing any of those things that the old school guys, the guy who sold 13,000 cars in 10 years, he actually had people handwriting the cards.
Well,
now you have
do
technology.
That. I still handwrite.
You still handwrite
cards, and
you must be up late at night.
To me, I'm from the old school. I think that is so important. Who does not like to get a card in the mail? We just do. I
was at a recent conference recently, and they said obviously the number one way for relationships is a face-to-face.
Right.
Phone call number 2. Text message in a card is actually in there in 3. Email is on the bottom of the list in trying to build relationships. And I had a realtor not too long ago. I actually sent him a birthday card. We did our kind of first deal together, and he was like, "Oh wow, this is so old school. This is great to actually get a card in the mail that I made personally." I had some pictures on there because I use technology. Put some photographs of him I steal from his Facebook and put on, so it makes it unique.
Absolutely.
That's the only card like that in the world.
Yeah.
And he got it, and that was his reaction. And so when you're doing these things, to circle back to really what you put the poinsettias on there, you're doing all these things. How do you, the question that I get, and I'm actually insulted by it now, is, did you get a deal from it?
It goes to one of my sayings, one of my quotes. If you do your job and do it well,
I have that quote on
the
here.
rewards will follow.
Yes.
That's exactly what that means.
Yes.
If you follow up with your network of people that love you, you love them, you enjoy doing business, you're building the relationship.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah.
And if you do that job and you do it well, then the rewards will follow. They will refer something or someone. They may buy something. It may not be immediate. It may be 2 years, 3 years. But, there's people that I've done business with for 20 years and multiple deals. And they're out there. I know they're out there, and we communicate, but not every day. Matter of fact, I just talked to one the other day. They're out in Vegas having a good time, and I told them I was going to drop a gift by. He said, "Well, we appreciate you so much, and thank you for doing that. That's awesome."
Mm-hmm.
So, just a simple
that
chit-chat.
You're thinking about them. I don't think people realize the power in that.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't have to take them out to dinner.
No.
It's just that you're somebody that you interact and you remember who they are.
Right.
You kept their business card.
Right.
I had a great last summer. I just sent out a mailer to my alumni association, and one of young alumni just so happened to be buying a home. He was literally signing getting the contract, and he got that card from me.
Boom.
You never know who's doing what at any time. Whether purchaser, they may just talk to somebody, or they're going to a barbecue that night and your card came in the mail, and then at the barbecue they're talking to their neighbor. "Yeah, I need to find a realtor." "Well, I just got a card from Kim. You need to call Kim."
Absolutely. And I still do mailings, believe it or not. I use the snail mail. It works beautifully.
Yes.
I've gotten multiple listings from that. I do a lot of the original things that to me are important. I mean,
It's a foundation because you had to 28 years ago. There wasn't the Facebook and stuff, but
no.
Not everyone's seeing your Facebook.
Right.
I mean, you can get into Facebook and you can design it to do that if you're into that area, but not a lot of people are doing videos or stuff. They're not Stevie doing all that type of stuff.
Right.
There's ways to do it, but I think the typical marketing. I hear my wife. This is my wife. She was in marketing, and this is like, oh, you know, they see it as a just a like I'm mailing everybody in a zip code. No, these are people who I'm targeting.
Right.
That obviously they know who I am. They're getting the card from me. I'm staying top of mind. I'm not just throwing it out there and hoping someone calls me.
Right.
You know, it's a strategic move, and it takes time of dripping on them.
And you have to continue that contact 8 to 10 times before they're going to probably say, hey, they're serious. I know this person. I better give them a call.
Do you remember the story I've told the story from Ryan's original book where he talked about sending the postcard out to the guy. It was like 4 years, and all of a sudden the guy called him out of the blue and bought the $17 million thing. So Ryan goes in and calculates his commission
Over the years.
over 17 years, what his commission was per day, because he was sending the postcard and kept sending it out to the guy. And finally he's like, well, I'm buying in New York. I got to call Ryan. He sends me a postcard every day.
There you go.
I've got several other stories. Patty Kesham has another great one similar to that. But Kim, who's been the most influential person in your life?
You know, a couple of people. My mom is a phenomenal woman. She's very intelligent. She's in her 80s, still very vibrant, active. She was a former nurse, and she ran the office basically of the cardiologist that she worked for.
Right.
So I saw her as a very strong woman, and we were talking about this not long ago. You know, I feel that I'm very similar to that, but I have a different personality than her. And she tells me, she said, you are just so much more of a risk taker than I was. But I'm a
That's what they call us, risk takers.
I'm a conservative risk taker. But you know,
but your work ethic, is that where your her work ethic? Yeah.
Absolutely, the work ethic is based on my parents for sure. And then my broker that I worked with, from the real estate perspective, he was awesome, and he's still in business, and we're still great friends.
Right.
He's more semi-retired now, but he was such an influence in helping me get started, and was just so patient and answering questions, even though I was a fast learner. He told me that. He said, I'll answer any question for you anytime. You just pick up the phone and call me if you
He saw something in you.
Yes.
At what point do you feel, because first you're like, oh, real estate? Okay, or were you like, oh yeah, I better get involved in that? What was your kind of first reaction when you approached it?
I hit the ground running. I had this extensive medical training. And to me, medical sales is probably the best sales training you will ever get across any industry. So I brought that to real estate. And, you know, real estate, this is one of my little pet peeves. Real estate doesn't really have a threshold. You know, basically anyone can get into real estate if they want to.
It's very low.
Yeah.
Pay to take the test.
Exactly.
Study for the test,
Where education is huge for me, and the more I know about it, the better I can advise my clients, especially from a commercial side, which I've done a lot of as well. But to get back to your question, he was such a great person, and he just supported me in whatever I did, and we were partners, and you know, we complimented each other, and subsequently I bought him out.
You got it right away.
I did.
You clicked right away, because that was a question I've evolved over the last few interviews, you know, especially with the newer agents. Is at what point did you get it? You know, because obviously, like Stevie, to go back to Stevie again, she's young. She went a period of time where she kept pushing,
Right.
and all of a sudden,
it clicks.
Yes.
Yeah. I've always had a sixth sense for pricing, for values, and I think that's a big thing in real estate. You've got to be able to ride through a neighborhood and say, I think that house is worth about this. That is huge. You've got to know that, because you're advising buyers and sellers both, and they want to know that you're not undercutting it or overpricing it. So that is a huge
especially when you start in the luxury market that you're in.
Yes.
Because you have that luxury tag that, you know, being in Ponte Vedra Beach, those unique homes
are very unique.
It's not the cookie cutter subdivisions, the planned urban developments. This is a unique home. This has unique qualities to it. obviously location.
Right, and
Yeah.
the appreciation is going up tremendously right now in our current market.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from a year ago, it has gone up probably 17 to 20% on a lot of homes, and that's just incredible. So you've got to be able to stay, you know, even though it's a little bit of the wild, wild west out there right now, you still have to stay on
You got
top
to control
of
it.
that. You
Well,
have to
it's
control
wild,
it.
wild west, but you got to be,
Right.
you got to be the
gotta
sheriff.
know, yeah.
Yeah, you got to.
You got to know how to
At least the sheriff that
negotiate.
lives through it.
Right. Yeah. And if you get 5 offers, how do you do that? Well,
Right.
you've got to know the strategy to do all that.
Well, we certainly can expand. I mean, I could probably go several hours here, but I know we're coming up on 1 hour already right now, right? Or-
Yes,
yeah, we're
55
coming-
right now.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Anybody? Any post any
Can
questions?
we ask 2 questions?
Two questions, okay.
Sure.
First one is from Carrie. What is one piece of advice you could give to a new loan officer on earning a realtor's business?
Great question. Building that relationship, getting to know them, and over the years, I've sort of narrowed it down to 3 really good ones that I rely on and I trust. And it's just, everybody has different products, and I know that about a loan officer, depending on the company that they're with. But just really developing that relationship, because you're not going to get every deal. You just aren't. None of us get every deal. I mean, we just are not going to get every listing. But you can still make sure that you're developing that relationship and offer the best product, know your stuff, you know, because we sort of use them as the middle person.
And in the unique properties, of course, you're in the luxury market, so you're in the millions
Yeah.
on some of these that
Yeah.
there aren't every day. There's not 1,000 products for those price
Right,
points.
exactly.
There's only unique, and there's certain individuals. There's definitely some lenders that are better than others because they have a product.
Absolutely.
You know that their companies look, you know, for that unique products that you have out there. So
and
having
you-
several in your book, so to speak.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I do. I usually have 3 to choose from. And I don't always make the choice. I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, these are 3 great lenders. How about call them, talk to them, you know, see how you interact with them. Do you like them? Do you trust them? And
Right.
then let's make a decision from there.
Yeah. Second
Awesome.
question.
Yes, this one's from Vincent. You mentioned passive income. Can you expand on that, and how can I achieve some of that?
Well,
unique thing is Vincent's a very young guy, so he has a whole world in front of him. So this is going to be good advice.
awesome. I think the one thing, real estate is a huge passive income opportunity. I don't care what age you are, but if you're young, get started early. Buy 1 rental property, 2 rental properties, 3 multifamily buildings, you know, and I can expand on that for an hour. I can tell you a story for hours on that. But that is the key, real estate, I think. A lot of people start other businesses, you know. The health and wellness industry is a huge industry right now, and that's a great passive income area. I would recommend maybe getting started in that.
I think one of the unique, I'm trying to think of the podcast, but all of them, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you know, Kiyosaki and so forth, especially for young people to find a multi-family thing and buy it as your primary residence. You live in one of the units, so you're going to be able to get the benefits of buying it as your primary, but you've got a couple of units to rent out and offset. Do that in whatever amount of time, save, and then you can leave that property, go do it again if you can find that many. That's the unique thing, is finding those multifamilies.
Well, it
is a niche market, but
you have to be able to cover your rents, and usually you do your numbers. I mean, you know, it's sort of a commercial end of things, and investment property is not emotional. It's the numbers have to work.
Yep.
And if you're living in it, then you're benefiting from that. But you should be able to cover your rents. And, you know, sometimes you don't. But again, long term, you've got to do the numbers. And if the numbers work, And there's formulas for all of that.
Could we do a podcast on just investment? You think that would be more
yeah,
where we can really talk about how
absolutely.
you do the numbers and so forth?
I'd love to
Let's
do that.
maybe sometime in January you get me back on, and that's all we'll talk about because we'll always mention the book. But
Sure.
we'll talk about what do you do to evaluate whether it's a commercial or a residential
Right.
investment property, if it makes sense.
Numbers.
That sounds like a
everywhere.
great show
Yeah.
there.
Awesome.
All right.
Real quick, they said go Tigers and go Giants. Oh,
So-
also, Carrie wants a signed book for her daughter.
Oh, yes.
Perfect. Yes.
Your daughter's now one, just turned one, right? No, was it November?
Aw.
Yeah, it was in November, and she loves books. She just turns the pages and goes,
This is full of color and illustrations. I have to show you. This is part of it there.
So nice.
And let me just plug it one more time. The starfish is my company logo. That's the reason for the starfish.
Okay.
This dog was my golden retriever, Sophie.
Right.
So friends, they're best friends. And the takeaway from this is we can be so different. And you think, what does a starfish and a golden
Right.
retriever have in common?
Right.
Well, there is a number of things, and I've listed some of the things for parents in the back to discuss with their discuss with their kids. Lessons for 2 to 6 year olds are listed here, and then it tells a little bit about golden retrievers and beach animals like starfish. So
Oh, I love that.
it's a great
Yeah.
little lesson in itself, but fun.
That's a great one.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to do one last formal question, and then we're going to wrap it
Sure.
up.
Okay.
In your real estate business, what is the one thing that you discovered, in other words, learned over the years, and is a cornerstone that you feel is a cornerstone of your success?
Oh, gosh. Honestly, it is about dealing with people, how to deal with people. Everyone is so different,
Mhm.
and there is no one fits all. You have to look at each person differently. You have to consider their needs, as unrational as they are sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, they really are.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with their money, you have to be very cognizant of that,
Mhm.
but respectful. And I just think as we've been in the business over the years, a younger, not necessarily young, depending on when you get in the business, but let's just say someone that's new in the business for 2 years may not have that depth of understanding yet.
Mhm.
I think the longer we're in the business, we understand how important relationships are.
Or if you want longevity and success, I mean, because you can jump into this business in a hot market right now,
Absolutely.
and as you and I know, if there's a downturn, I mean,
They're going to go away.
their licenses expire and they move on.
Right.
Same in the loan officer world. I mean, the rates go up or whatever. They all fly.
Yeah.
And those who have made it a 28-year career,
Mhm.
it's building those relationships and treating everyone as individuals. We all have the basic questions we want to ask them initially,
Of course.
because that's standardized. But then
Right.
it's like having our conversation where I've asked you a question, then you said, and all of a sudden I thought of 3 different more questions. I want to know more about
Exactly,
you.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what it is with relationships. And me sitting at a conference table with a client, and I'm asking hard questions sometimes.
Mhm.
And the hard questions are the ones that most people don't want to ask. But I'm okay with it. You have to ask those.
All right, since we brought this up, I have to ask this question now, because you are dealing out in Ponte Vedra and probably have more unique clients than the average agent in town, or in Jacksonville or St. Johns County, whatever. What is one of the craziest requests or demands that you've gotten,
Gosh.
even from a seller? Because it not always comes from the buyer.
You know, I had a situation once.
This is totally catching her off guard. She did not expect this
Well,
question.
no, I didn't. I haven't.
There's one story you tell every cocktail party you're
Well,
at.
there was this situation that they came from a different state,
Mhm.
and they were very, I think, well known from where they were.
Mhm.
Very eccentric
Yes.
is all I can say,
Yeah.
and to the point where I almost felt frightened. I had to step back a couple of times, and I'm not used to doing that. You
Mhm.
know, I sort of move forward, and I just sort of had to step back and think, gosh, I don't think I've ever had to deal with this before.
Right.
So I tried to have conversations with both he and his mom.
Right.
They were a team buying a property, and he was just very dramatic. I mean, just very eccentric. The son. Very eccentric, dramatic, and I just felt frightened at times. So I didn't like that, obviously.
Yeah.
So we worked through it, and then they ultimately bought. But that's probably the most eccentric thing that I've ever had. And I put it.
Was there something he wanted about the property or wanted the seller to do for the property?
No, I think it was just his personality.
Yeah.
I think he just liked attention. He liked drama. Obviously, he was an older man living with his mom. And I thought, well, you know, I'm not judging. I'm just trying to process things.
Wasn't mom living with him, he was living with mom.
I'm processing things. So we take it all in.
Right,
We've come across a lot of different people. And then I've had great athletes that I've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, tennis pros, awesome.
Yeah.
People, golfers, great friends. Sure. Yeah, great friends.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's been a great circle.
All right, so I'm gonna wrap it. We're gonna go into our 2-minute warning questions, which I've got right here. I think I know. I should write down I know what the answer you're gonna be. I just feel that because this is a question I ask on every one of my shows. If you've listened to them, is it more important who you know or what you know?
My grandfather was a phenomenal man. He was involved in politics, very well liked, very social. At an early age, I mean, I'm like 10, 11. He said, Kim, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I just always remembered that.
Yeah.
Not taking it for granted or not taking advantage of that,
Right.
but respecting that. And it is true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like the agent that I had. I picked up the phone for her, called around a few people, and there it was.
You know, I think that circles back to our very beginning of the show where we were talking about, and that there's some great women out there that we don't know about yet. And if they want to get out, they need to reach out to someone like yourself.
They do.
They need to reach out to other successful women and get to who you know in your life, because they'll help you get to what you know, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And if I can do that, that is huge.
Yeah.
That to me is just great rewards and, you know, such a legacy to leave for people.
Well, since we're right there, what is the best way someone wants to reach out and contact you, whether it's for real estate or whether they just want to, you know, pick your brain, sit down, maybe they want to get into real estate, don't know, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to reach me is cell 904-707-1372.
1372. So those will be in the show notes of the podcast that you'll get on Apple Podcasts. But those who are listening there on Facebook Live, obviously can rewind that. But I'm sure, obviously, you just Google Kim Davis, Ponte Vedra Beach Realty, that'll come up.
Yes,
get a hold of me when there. Sporting event. You a Jaguars fan? Jumbo Shrimp? Iceman? You like hockey?
I love football. I was a cheerleader when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
in my younger days, and love it. I know.
Did you cheer at USC?
No.
No.
not
Okay,
yet,
just
but
high school.
Through high school.
Yeah.
Love it and know a lot about football actually.
Mm-hmm.
I love.
I'm
San
sure you've probably
Francisco.
dealt with some Jaguar players over the years.
I have,
Yeah.
I have some great teams that I follow and like. Of course, Jaguars, I always root for them and hope the best for them. And they have a great quarterback now in Trevor. And, and I know he's going to develop. And NFL is very different than
Have you helped him buy a house?
No, I did not.
Who's got that deal? Who's got the inside on that?
But I think he's an awesome individual, and I think he's going to do well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Regardless.
What's on Kim's travel bucket list?
Well, you know, I've been very fortunate in life. I've traveled the world. Australia was an awesome trip. Italy, all over Europe. I would love to go to Portugal and Iceland. Those are two places.
My wife wants to do that. She wants to go. She wants to go stay in one of those ice hotels.
Yeah, how fun would that be? You know, I I've been fortunate. Like I said,
Yeah.
I've traveled a lot, but those are two places I've never been to.
Yeah. I understand Portugal's. I've seen some obviously travel. Portugal's got just beautiful, and some unique places.
Yeah.
All right, this is a new question I've added on here. Okay, I've had some really top-notch guests like yourself here recently, and who would be a great guest on the podcast?
Gosh. Anyone?
I know your mind's not blank. You're just deciding which ones.
Or real estate? What
Well,
are
you know, because real estate excellence is the goals. I mean, I'm going to have on next week a gentleman from Lunds Pro come on, home inspections, anything real estate, really. I've even had people on that manage virtual assistants.
Yeah.
You know, and how they are helping agents with some of the things they're doing using virtual assistants. Some of these individual agents.
I would think, and not just and you can research this, but I think someone that can take us into the next 10 years as far as platforms.
A futurist.
Yes.
A futurist?
A
I mean, as far as
futurist.
technology?
Yes, because there is so much going on. I talked to a guy from
Oh, now you're making me work now.
Well,
You're not making
for
this
example,
easy.
I talked to a guy from Israel yesterday. He called
Okay.
me, and we were talking about different platforms and technology. And I mean, he was throwing things out there, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
What are some of the things that they think they can do in the future that we're unable to do right now?
Well,
We're trying to put
they're
together.
doing a few things, but they're going to be enhancing it. Artificial intelligence is going to be huge. I mean, that's how they're finding people. Different platforms that are going to be included that are not there per se. You know, and people like we talked about earlier, Elon Musk, I mean, he's just phenomenal
Right.
in so many areas. And people like that are really, they have the money behind them, but they also have the brains to put it together. And they have a great team behind them. While he may not know exactly how to do it, he has a great team that does know how to
Right.
do it. And they're
That's
putting it
what they're doing. He pays them to think.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love that. I love that creativity. I love that innovativeness. The futurist is important. I mean, it truly is. And I read an article on him, and I'll wrap it up. But he is dealing with a physician now on how to effectively anti-age.
Isn't that all rich
It's-
people's?
But he can do it. I
Not
have
age as
faith.
fast. I don't know if not age is actually not is available. Not age as fast.
Well, true. You know,
That just
maybe-
puts more burden on our society. I'd love to live forever, but you know what? It comes a point where,
well, quality life.
right? Quality of life.
Quality
of
of
life.
life.
I think everyone has to contribute to society.
I
As
agree.
some can't be a burden on society.
agree.
There's no doubt about
agree.
that. And then we have a natural progression of
Sure.
our life cycle. Not to say someone who's my dad's 80, your mom's 80 something, and you know, as long as they've done something through life that they're not a burden on society, I think is everyone's. I mean, this is my dream. As I tell my wife, if I become a burden
Right.
on the family, on the society, then just hey, he's called me.
Yeah.
Let me go.
Yeah.
You know, type thing.
Well, I think everybody has different opinions on that. But,
Yeah.
but Elon was truly dedicated to this task and goal. And hey, if anybody
He's got
can
the
do
money
it,
to-
he
to-
can
they-
do
to
it.
drill on it, right?
So I'll be following that.
All right, so we're going to have you on in maybe late January. We'll talk just about investment properties. That's going to be the
Sure.
title of the show.
That'd be awesome.
Investment properties. I know we're going to have a good crowd that's going to be listening to that because in other times I've just talked about it.
Right.
It's gotten great, but we're going to dig deep into that
Sure.
in January. Have you back on? Appreciate you coming in today.
Oh, I've loved
Keep
it.
us updated on the book.
I will.
The children's book is out there. We're going to have it in the show notes and so forth. Maybe what we'll do also, Daniel, is after the show, we'll take a picture of the cover of the book. We'll post it on our sites and so everyone sees the cover and where they can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Can do that.
All right. Appreciate
Thank
you being on the show
Oh,
today.
I've loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.